Very much for the invitation of Tema. I'm very happy to be here with you after my colleagues Sylvain Chevassus and also Antonin Vergès. I'm sure you had appreciated what they gave to you, and I'll try to do my best to give as much information as they did. As Jacob explained, my intervention would be quite different from what is said in the summary in your program, and I would apologize for that. But we thought, after having discussed with Rasmus, that you know much things about the Grenelle laws and our scheme in France, and so we decided to focus on the experiment. It means on the last phase and the fresh one, the last moments of our organization in France. Just a few words, a few personal words, if you permit, because I've not said very much about my own career, and so I've worked in the Ministry of Agriculture mainly. And I've just been recently, since 4 years, in the Ministry of Sustainable Development, where I'm still working on agricultural policies, but also agricultural practices and process. And recently, we've come to the products. So I've moved from the policies to the process and then the products, and that's why I'm here. So just a little remember about the last Grenelle law. So we had the first Grenelle law, which indicates that the consumer has a right to be informed on the environmental impacts. And the idea at that moment during the Grenelle debate was that we could quickly implement a general information to the consumer. And during the debate in the parliamentary, the members of parliament in 2010 considered that we were not ready, and the idea was to implement an experiment for 1 year. And that's what is written in the Grenelle, the second law. So it means at last a 1 year experiment phase, and with some just short characteristics. And the first one is that we are on multi-criteria impacts and indicators, and I will go back on that matter. And at the end of the experiment, we should assess it, and the Parliament should decide what will be the next step. So we organized a launch of call, and we had 230 applicants for that project, and we chose to keep online on only 168 of them. Why that? Because some of the applicants were not really ready, because there are not enough clear ideas of their project, or we suppose that they didn't have the information about carbon or mainly the other impacts. And so we had to do this selection. So you see many different products, and the larger part is the one I'm working on, food and beverage products, but we have also many electric and electronic equipment and so on. So these are the terms of the launch of call. It was quite an open and flexible requirements. So I've already explained that we want multi-criteria experiment, and especially in the food sector. Why that? I have to stop just a few minutes on that issue, because of course we are talking about carbon for these 2 days, But specifically in the food sector, it's very important not to stay only on the carbon impact. Just imagine the problem of the cattle. If you consider only the carbon impact, you would say that in agricultural sector the problem is from methane, so it's linked with the cattle, beef or sheep. But yet, so that's an issue, and we have also to consider that that matter. But you have to think also that the cattle is a grass eater, and grasslands may be useful for biodiversity, for example. So if you consider only the carbon impact, you could avoid another more important, not more important, but another important impact. Well, I will go fast on that. The main thing is that at that moment, it was at the end of 2010, the PCRs were not ready, and so the idea is to be very open and to let the companies propose what they want as indicators and as not methods, because they had to comply with the BBX, which is the repository of good practices in France. But the choice of the indicators are very open. And so that's what you can find on our website. I will give you the address at the end of my presentation, and you will have them in the PowerPoint. So you can see that we have many different products, fish, canned vegetables, eggs, tomato sauce, and so on. There are some examples of the results. Well, I will go fast, and we can go back later. Too fast. So I want to stop a minute on that slide because it gives you the schedule. So in the beginning of 2011, we selected the applicants, and the experiment was to begin on July in 2011. Sorry, we had some delays. Well, the companies faced some delays, and so they really began the experiment in July, or more of them in October, and the last moment to begin was December. And so the real beginning of the experiment is December. Well, at this date, in December, we have all the companies involved. So the experiment will stand for 1 year, and during this year, that is 2012, we have different kinds of assessments, and at the end of the year, we have to present a report at the Parliament, and then the Parliament will discuss about the next step. And what I will talk in the last of my speech is a specific survey we did in food industry. And so it was just in the beginning of the experiment. That is, we made the phone surveys during November and January. So it's really the beginning, and that explains some of the answers I'll show you. About the different assessments we want to do. So there are first self-assessment by the companies themselves. All the companies involved have to propose to send a report at the end of the experiment. That is in September. We have also a test by the consumer associations in France. Another one is a control test by the market surveillance authorities. So we had a training session with the people from this authority, and now they are going to some of the companies to check where do the data has come and how can they control that. and at least we have the direct assessment by the ministry. So I will focus on just the first part, which is the survey among food industry. Just a few words before about what we are looking for during this experiment. The idea is not to check a new behavior from the consumers. We don't think that at this moment, with just few products, it would be possible to have a change in the consumer behavior. So the idea is rather to check the technical feasibility. Is that possible to find the data? Is it possible to give information, clear information all along the value chain? And also the idea is to have a first idea about the costs, even if it's just in the beginning of the process. So our survey was made with 36 companies out of 73 in the food and beverage sector, and it was made by telephone. You have here all the kind of products. What is interesting is to stress that we had not only individual companies experiments, but also they were organized by sectoral organizations, and so we have also collective actions. And specifically for the small companies, for the SMEs, such as bakeries. We have bakeries in the east of France where when you buy your bread, you can have the impacts, you can know the impacts. And it's also the case for catering. For example, we have in the experiment a producer which produces carrots and vinaigrettes, salads, different salads, and so on. So these are the main indicators that the companies have chosen. GHG emissions were mandatory, so it's not a surprise that all of our companies show the GHG emissions. And the second one is water consumption. We think that is because it's quite easy to find the data on that matter. After that, it was more difficult for the companies because the methods are not stabilized, specifically for biodiversity. But yet, the companies wanted to try. Well, for 15 of them, wanted to try biodiversity indicators. We have many different biodiversity indicators, so we can't say much about it. And the other ones, you see, are less chosen. Well, during that phase of experiment, internet was the most currently used medium for the communication. And yet, we were happy to see that the companies used other format, other mean of communication, either in the shops or on the products. And most of the companies used two or more of these means. And when we ask what were the more relevant of these means, you see that there are only two ways that are considered very relevant. First one is internet, of course, because it's cheaper and it's easier to implement. But of course, we can suppose that, and it's just a supposition, that consumers that it's more difficult to find the information for the consumers. And if you, on the contrary, if you have the information on the product, it's far more expensive, but it's easier for the consumer. So I will go a little bit faster. Well, what was very interesting during the survey is that all the companies explained that it was very important on an internal point of view. And I think that's interesting for your companies, because it was the experiment and all that job was a way of involved all the staff around sustainable development and explain what are the impacts and what can be done on that issues to reduce the impacts. And so you see that on my pie chart on the left, 3/4 of the companies said that it was very important, that there have been a very important involvement of the staff. And if we try to know a little bit more about why is there such an involvement? You see that most of the companies find it very useful. So there's no debate about this. Everything think it's something important and useful to work on that. After that, when we try to know if it's understandable, well, all along the value chain with all the suppliers and contractors of the companies, the answer was yes, it is understandable. And so there was no difficulty to work all along the value chain. On the consumer part, it's more difficult because we were just at the beginning of the experiment, so it's not easy to say if it's understandable. So what about the data? Well, it's quite balanced on that issue because, as you see on the left, 1/3 of the companies found that it was difficult to obtain the data. So it means that 2/3 answered yes, it's easy to find these data, but yet we have difficulties, and I think that's the last step. The next step of our job would be on that issue. So there's a question very satisfying for us because. Well, even if you have to remember that there are 73 companies, food and beverage company, involved in that experiment. So we can suppose that they are the most interested in that subject, and they are not representative of the whole world. But yet, at the end, not at the end, but after having begun the experiment, a large majority think that it's possible and useful to move on and to continue to display information. So we are just at the beginning. So we will see at the end of the year if the answer is the same, of course. But it's quite important for us to have this what we think is a success. And even 2/3 of the companies in our survey think that it could be not generalized maybe, but we could imagine a widespread use of that system of indicators. So if I have to resume this survey, we could we can stress some good points. So first point is that the companies were quite interested by this experiment, and they think that it's important for the corporate image. There have been an increasing knowledge of the LCA key points and of the impacts, and so it's very important because our objective is not only to give indicators, but effectively to reduce the impact. So that's something very important. And the third thing is that we had many links and debate and organization all along the value chain. It was not so easy to obtain traceability for the data, but yet the companies have organized a debate and in attempt to obtain the data from their suppliers. Well, what we have to do and what were the weaknesses is that the companies thought that it was too small experiment, and they should have liked a better communication from our ministry. So we heard that specifically towards the consumer, such as using mass media, TV, and so on. But during the phase of experiment, we haven't implemented such communication. And of course, the second thing, very important, specifically for our 2 days job, is that there's a need of common methods and practical tools and common data, because during the experiment, quite all the companies have to use the services of consulting firms to find the data and to calculate the indicators. So globally, it's considered as positive, but we have still some job about methods. And that's my last slide. Well, I've already explained about the necessity of harmonization and all about calculation tools and data. So you have to think again that it was in the beginning of the experiment. It was at the beginning of 2011, and since that we have worked hard on that matter with AFNOR, ADEME, with all the stakeholders, and so we have worked on the data and all these tools, but yet it's not all done. We still have a few months before the end of year. So during these months, we could progress on that issues. Well, so you'll have the address of the website, and I invite you to see to go deeply in that in this information. Well, and the most important part are to write, but you've got the address at the end for these pages. I have to say, and that's my last word, I promise, that we are working on English pages. So I hope it would be in better English than today, but you'll have many information, and it's important for friends. Thank you very much.